Shambuca's podcast, coming to you from a secret location in Cork City, with Anya and Owen as your host. And sometimes Jay.
Alright lads, welcome back to the Shambuca's podcast, episode 20, isn't it? Because this is a special episode in a way, because it's someone brilliant that I like love to bits, right? Joseph isn't here, but we're making up for it, aren't we?
Yeah.
So it's fine. No one give out to me because we're making up for it. We've Barry on from Barysbods. How are you, Barry?
Hey guys, what's the crack? My biggest fan, Joseph, isn't here.
I know. Do you know, we actually asked Joseph to come on, we said it to him. But see, as I didn't say to you yet, lads, the reason we're not doing the episode with him this week is because I think he's doing his Christmas exams.
Yeah, priorities.
Oh, fun.
He's a Christmas exam tomorrow. But you know what I think is really lousy, right? Already getting off topic, just starting off, right? He's in sixth year.
Yeah.
And he still has Christmas exams. And then pre's. Like, what's that about? Like,
I can't.
He's in sixth year. I thought he was in college.
no, he looks grown, doesn't he?
Ah.
Or is it his
Yeah.
Do you know what's going to happen now? Joseph's going to watch this, and he's going to watch Barry, and he thinks he's in college, and Joseph's going, yeah, this is going around like a fucking tank. He's going to think he's mad. Yeah, but I think that's so fucked up, like.
About the exams?
Yeah,
Christmas?
like, do you know what I mean? Would you not just give them their praise, let them cool off?
I thought it was pretty at Christmas that you didn't get like Christmas exams. Like, I don't know, I can't remember.
Wait, what's pre's? When you say pre's?
Pre-leaving sort of like.
Lads, this
this is a new term.
Diverse, isn't it?
Am I just imagining it, or like regular pre for you and stuff? I can't remember.
There is pre's.
There is, isn't there?
Do you know your pre-exams?
I'm presuming that's
exams.
So is that would you have mocks? Do you?
I think mocks are
yeah.
pre's.
That's what they call them in the UK.
Okay, yeah. I was wondering, do you have like pre's and mocks, or do you just call them mocks?
The pre.
That's so funny.
Right.
The pre mock. We know. So, like in third year and sixth year, did you have mocks?
Yeah. So we had mocks, and then we had the exam. But in Leaving Cert, we had like pre-mocks as well before Christmas.
Whoa, hang on. That is so confusing. Because you know what? In a minute, we're going to be asking you questions. They've either questions right now. And one of them is to do with the stage of school. And I think there is a bit of exams in it. So it's good that we cleared this up now. Because I would have said free.
To get the terminology in order.
What?
Yeah.
We just talked about this as well before we recorded. Like, Barry's only from, are you from Mayo originally, Barry?
Yeah, I'm from Mayo originally, a little town called Killala. No one probably heard of Killala, but you've heard of Ballina.
Class. That sounds,
yeah.
Killala sounds like, it doesn't sound like it, but like I'm picturing Ballamore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like
You're not like.
fairy tale.
I mean, it has a little bay, like a fishing bay, and it does have like a load of coloured buildings along that. So I mean, it's not too far off from Ballamore.
I'd love to live in a little quiet village, like where everyone knows their business. To some extent, like. Well, Barry's gone to Galway, so like, there must be a reason to that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Pretty sure when I went to Galway, like everyone in the village knew I went to Galway as well. That's the type of village it is.
Local news, like.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right. Anyway, so Barry, do you want to give people a quick introduction to you and like why you're coming on the podcast today?
Yeah, so I am a personal trainer from Galway. I used to do personal training one-on-one in Snap Fitness. It's a gym in Galway City. And then recently this year, during the lockdown, I actually lost my job, followed by moving online full-time. So obviously I couldn't train people one-on-one because the virus. So I had to train people online. And then that's where things went really well online. So now I'm basically what is an online coach. I've been coaching Enya for a while there as well, a couple of months. She's actually one of my earlier clients. She was with me before it was full-time online. So she was lucky in that sense.
And, was actually. I remember, that's so weird. I actually remember starting with you and you were saying, I remember you talked about the tax man. You were like, oh, he's not coming for me yet or something because it was that early.
Yeah.
We were just, you know. And
he'll be coming for me now next year.
I didn't know that Barry's on this. Like, there's no beef with me and Barry. Like, I need to address my emotional eating and then I'll be back with Barry, I'd say, you know. I just need to face that first, you know, that way. Will we kick it right off?
Yes, well.
into our questions. I know you're on about your mental health experience as well, Barry, and you haven't really talked about that a lot. Sure, you haven't.
No, I've written an email about it, and I kind of talked about my story to everyone on the email list, and I've probably talked briefly on my Instagram stories, but that's about it.
Yeah, I'm so grateful that I was on the email list because, like, I do have a few email lists and I don't read them. Honestly, I don't read any of them really. But I don't know if I can't remember what the headline was, but it really touched a nerve with me and I clicked on it because people don't know. Like, I know Barry through Joseph. I don't know how Joseph found Barry on Instagram, but he like stanned Barry and he used to show me Barry's videos, you know.
Yeah.
And I go, oh yeah, and Barry is a good way of explaining, lads. If anyone's kind of like me or a bit of a space or you have a clue about like fitness or anything, go on to his page because he explains stuff very well, you know. And I said to Joseph used to go into his Q&A boxes and ask questions. And I was like, fuck it. I was like, I'm texting him because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then it just turned out to be this, you know what I mean?
I remember, like, you know, on your Instagram, you make a lot, like, you know, you make fitness kind of funny, like, you know, when you're doing it, like, your videos, they're really entertaining. There was like one in particular, it was like you were like mocking people that ate like garlic sauce or something.
No, mayonnaise.
And you were calling it goblin sauce. I thought it was like the funniest thing ever. Like,
Oh yeah, geez, that I think that was a recent enough one, was it?
yeah. I thought it was really.
Oh yeah, what I was
remember.
saying is in the email that Barry sent out, I don't know why I clicked on it. It must have been the headline or something. But I seen it and like whenever you have a personal trainer, you're talking to them a lot, you know what I mean? But it's more talking about me, you know, that way, because he was my personal trainer. So I didn't know. And I think as well, when someone's like kind of telling you what to do and advising you and stuff, you think that they're just like a perfect human.
Yeah.
And whenever I seen it, I was like, oh my God, Barry's been through stuff that I've been through. And I was like, what? And I remember I texted him straight away and I was just, I don't know, we didn't even start the podcast then. It wasn't even a thing.
No, it must have been before. I think it was beforehand, yeah.
Yeah, and it just clicked with me then whenever we were kind of doing mental health stuff in the podcast. I was like, I'd love to ask Barry, would you be happy to come on? And he's here, so he is. But I was going to ask you, just to start off with the mental health side of things, how was your childhood, like your home life and your school experience? And do you think any of that could have contributed to the depression you suffered with in later years?
Yeah. So it's a good question. Childhood actually, like, and it was weird because contributed, but maybe not in the way you'd think. I had a really, really good childhood. Like I had not experienced any loss like at all.
Me too,
now I did have, sorry?
I said me as well. I was the same as you with that.
Yeah. And like I've had a cousin now that did end up killing herself, but like again, it was a distant cousin. I wouldn't even go so far as to say I really like experienced kind of what loss was or anything like that. I had a great mom and dad. Have a great mom and dad. They're still there. Brother, sister, and like really well. Enjoyed school. First year up to third year, and then things kind of took a turn. Then I suppose when I got into fifth year. But like childhood, I don't think it caused it. But I think when I did start actually getting depressed, and when I did start kind of having those thoughts, it almost made me feel like you can't have these because you like because your childhood was so good, so it doesn't make sense for you to have these thoughts. So I just completely like didn't acknowledge anything that I was having, and I wouldn't acknowledge kind of that I would have had depression or anything like that at the time because I'm like, there's no way, because I had no trauma or anything like that.
Like that shows how much like depression and stuff bullies you. Like like he was suffering with depression. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and then his head was giving him guilt for being depressed. Like it's so crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it's like obviously in school then, like you said you started feeling like that in fifth year. What was the kind of thing that kind of triggered it? Do you know what it was yourself or?
Yeah, so like I think there's definitely like a few factors that could have caused it. Like I definitely think like it is very much a clinical thing, and it is, I think a big part of it obviously is you have kind of hormonal changes going on in your brain. You are like, I don't know whether it's some people lack serotonin or some people don't have enough of it. That's what the antidepressant medication does anyways. But either way, I think a big part of it is probably just that it was somewhat inevitable anyways, because I kind of felt myself mood just going down in fifth year. Now I didn't pay much attention because I was like, oh, okay, every teacher is telling me about the leaving cert that I need to get prepared for life, and I didn't know what I wanted to do at the time. Or actually, I didn't know kind of how I was going to do what I wanted to do, but I actually did have a good idea what I was going to do.
Yeah, because I know from the email you put out that you were very fixated on your parkour stuff. You were really, really fixated on it to nearly an unhealthy degree. Would you go into detail about that in any way?
Yeah, so I was mad into parkour, which for anyone that doesn't know is basically it's a bit like urban gymnastics, I suppose, is the best way to put it. So you'll have like vaults over walls and things like that. You'll have like, you can go from jumps to curbs all the way up to jumps to walls at height, and you basically build yourself up to kind of more jumps and kind of higher level stuff over time, just kind of like a gymnast would. And it's a lot of people think of it and think of your traditional jump from building to building, but a lot of it is ground level stuff and just kind of progressing with new movements. So a bit like dancing, just from like A to B, and it's not to music. So that's kind of one way I can describe it. But I was essentially obsessed with that at the time. I would kind of miss out on social interactions because of that, social occasions. I had a little group of people that would go around and train with me. None of them were my age. One of them was like 6 years older than me, and the other, some people that would come around and they were like 10 years younger than me, and they were just getting into it. But I absolutely loved it. I love kind of teaching young ones getting into it and things like that. And there's a lot of pressure at the time because I was basically holding the entire community for parkour on my shoulders in my hometown.
But you know, that would be like the way you said you were holding it. That's more like a thought. You know, back then you thought that you were holding, and then you're in fifth year. You already, teachers in fifth year, like Barry just said, it's all like college, you need to know your job, and he was already thinking about that, and like then he felt like he had the whole parkour in his village like on him. Like that is very choking, like.
So I thought I put so much kind of work into this. I had the Facebook group made. I'd been training for so long. It was only 3 years, but in my brain at the time it was like that was long. And I was basically thinking, I'm at this point now, so I have to make a living out of this. And my brain was kind of, I convinced myself that I need to do this for a living, otherwise kind of life's not worth living. So that's kind of where I was at. And then when things started to not go my way, that's when there was really some fucking internal conflict going on there, because I'm like, okay, I have to do this, because if I don't do this, I don't have a fucking clue who I am or what I'm going to do. So I was like holding on to this career in like teaching parkour or becoming a sponsored parkour athlete. And I was freaking out because I was thinking, okay, this is now starting to not go my way. What am I going to do?
Yeah. It's the big thing about change, isn't it? You know, like I have a thing of, I've always tried to force things to stay the same. But if you don't accept change, you're going to suffer, you know? And Barry, I know as well, you struggled, like you said there a second ago, it affected your friendships and stuff. At the time, was that a thing that you done on purpose? Like, was it like, I have to go back on the friendships because I need to focus more? Or did it just kind of happen?
I suppose it just kind of happened, and I definitely didn't realize the importance of like social interaction at the time, as opposed to now. It's like the polar opposite. Obviously, you're stuck at home with the same like housemates all the time, and you're like, okay, your brain really is designed for like social connection. And but during the time, I just did not value like friendships, social connection. I would not stay in touch with friends. I would just have my goals in my head, and I'd obviously stay in touch with family and things like that, but I'd have my goals in my head and I'd be completely focused on those. And like, obviously I get along well with people, talk to people on the lunch break, have a laugh, crack a few jokes. But I would never nurture like any kind of friendships or anything like that. It just wouldn't ever have been a priority for me.
So that must have been kind of lonesome as well, wouldn't it have been?
Yeah, it definitely was. But I was of the mentality then that I don't need anyone else, which is kind of, I mean, it just doesn't need to be true. Like, there's nothing good about not needing anyone else, because there is always people there that you can rely on. That's the thing. So it doesn't actually make sense to say that you don't need anyone else.
I think it's kind of like a teenager's mentality as well. You know, like growing up just before adulthood and stuff. Like, oh, I can do everything on my own. When, you know, growing up then, you realize it's not the case. You actually need a good, secure group around you, you know, to help you through things, you know.
And especially when
That's
Barry
it.
said he was very fixating, you know,
Yeah.
that like whenever, like for example, whenever I was that age, I was at the stage of I do not give a fuck, like about anything, you know. I was at the other end of it, and I was suffering because I didn't give a fuck. But then you have somebody who was so fixated on making progress and making success that it was really affecting negatively. Like a lot of people think that like depression stems from being lazy. That's a belief a lot of people have, and honestly I used to have that belief, which is really horrible, but there is a stigma, you know what I mean. But there's Barry, and he was so fixated on getting success for his whole career, for his whole life, before his career even started, when he was still in school. And it was affecting him. Like, it really does show, you know what I mean. And I know when you were in sixth year, Barry, you kind of started drinking more and experimenting with drugs and stuff. Would you be able to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so basically fifth year kind of, it went fairly well. I did terrible in any exams. I got like the lap points, and there's like the we were talking about beforehand, it's like the pre-mock exam for the Leaving Cert. I remember getting like 98 points in total for everything. So we really went from kind of doing a bit of schoolwork when I got the chance to literally just almost like you were saying there, Enya. So just went to the point where I just didn't give a fuck. Around this point, this is when like the parkour stuff, I just stopped progressing, and a lot of it was just me being, and a lot of it was just me being too harsh on myself. Like, I was progressing, but kind of like someone with weight loss when they're making steady progress, but they're like in their head, this isn't enough. That's kind of what I was doing with the parkour side of things. So you probably know what that's like yourself as well, and you probably know what that feels like. But that was kind of going on. It wasn't really going very well with that stuff. And then I also had the first breakup around that time as well. And that at the same time just caused me to go, right, that's it. Suppose I fucked my life up. I was like, it's funny because I was 18 and I have so much longer left. But at that time, I thought I'd ruined my whole life. I was going to be homeless.
Present, isn't that right? Like all you were doing was being in the present. And at that time, you were fixated about your future a lot. You didn't have, you weren't going around with friends. Then how would you, then you got so fixated that the school dropped and then a relationship dropped. Like, whenever you're 18, like that, like you, in that moment, like all you had was collapsing. Do you know that way?
Yeah. And like at the time, like the two things that happened to me were completely normal. If they happen now, in fact, they still happen now. Like there was a girl I was seeing fairly recently that just ended, but I'm able to deal with those things much, much better now. Like there could be a talent or hobby I pick up. I'm prepared now to think that, okay, maybe in 2 years' time, this whole online coaching stuff it mightn't be something I want to continue, and I might want to do something else. And I'm okay with that as well. But at the time, it was like a first time experience, and I thought I'd nowhere else to go. So I was like, right, at this stage, fuck it. I don't actually care about anything. Let's just, so I started drinking a bit more and I started taking drugs. But the thing about the drugs is that was more of, it wasn't so much taking the drugs to kind of cope with any sort of pain, but it was more so that I just developed an interest in the effects of drugs at that time, like the science of it.
Yeah, like
I was always a curious person.
In drugs, but he doesn't take them only because he's in the boxing. Whereas you were at the stage where you kind of gave up about the parkour in your head at the time. And like, so I think of Joseph knows all about like crocodile and all these like weird drugs. You know, I'd say you know about stuff like that. So like for you, it wasn't an addiction path. It was just, oh, I'm not doing my parkour anymore. Like, why not just try some drugs? Like, why not? I've nothing to lose here, you know?
Yeah. So I don't think it was that. I don't actually think the drug use and the alcohol use at the time. Now, obviously, some of these are inherently unhealthy, and even in small doses, they do harm. But the way I was taking them at the time, it was not actually to cope with this. It was more just kind of a side effect of it, because I had nothing else to be at. And I was like, fuck it. I just entered basically, you know, that college party mode that people go through in first and second year where they start experimenting. I basically went through that in Leaving Cert. So that's when I had my first, yolk, which if anyone's wondering is ecstasy, MDMA just in the pill form. That's when I was kind of looking up stuff online, had LSD and things like that as well. And that was all in kind of,
I never knew.
I never actually said that.
No, I didn't know that yolk was MDMA.
Really?
Never. Did you know that?
Yeah.
I never knew that. Oh my God. No, is it yolk ecstasy?
Yes, that is MDMA. Yolk ecstasy is MDMA.
What? Look at me sober 14 months.
Should be.
Why? I'm so shocked. I actually have an experience with yolks. I took them once, only once. I think I was like 17. I'm like, come here, I would have taken them a lot more if I had a nice time with them, but I did not. I think there was loads of people in my house and they're all wearing like loads of clothes and like trying to get warm or something. I don't even know. And I took it in a skin. I bombed it. And I just remember being out in my garden. I think it was raining. The grass was wet. Sorry, I banged it with my leg and getting too excited. And I thought I was doing stars in the grass with Mark Simpson or something. But it wasn't fun. Like for me, it was scary. I didn't like it a bit. Sorry for interrupting you. I just never knew that.
No, you're grand. No, that's that sounds about right. But yeah, I was a similar experience, but except I wasn't lying down. I didn't get to the lying down stage. But
Sorry, what other things did you experimented with? There was ecstasy. What other ones was there?
Jesus, actually quite a bit. So I never actually really abused any of them. So obviously I had alcohol to like the fairly quote unquote normal degree. I would have definitely drank a few times, but I would have never drank on my own. It would have only been at large gatherings.
Okay, so it wasn't too unhealthy, like.
Yeah, so it wasn't, and I wouldn't even go out that often. It would just kind of match whatever everyone else was doing. But I know in Leaving Cert, anyways, there was definitely the yolks. It was probably like 4-5 times maybe over the course of a year. So it wasn't actually that many, but it was definitely like considerable. It was shrooms or truffles. Truffles, for anyone who doesn't know, is basically like the thing that grows underneath the shroom. Have you heard of? If anyone's heard of magic mushrooms?
I might have dabbled myself.
He dabbled recently. What happened again? Barry, because he'll relate.
I got zombie hands, basically. And
explain zombie hands.
So I'd have my hand like this, closed, or no, I'd have my hand open. It would be perfectly fine. I'd close my hands, and it would slowly turn into zombie arms.
And then my mum's friend was in the house.
Yeah.
My mum's friend was over, and she wanted to come up to have a look at my paintings, but he was at a banger, and I said to him, "This was me sober. I was watching it was a once-off thing, like you said. He wasn't doing it out of bad purposes. It was just for fun."
Yeah.
And she wanted to come up and see my paintings, and Owen said, "No, you have to go down and show her whatever." And I convinced him that she was an alien, and he was freaking out.
Oh, you'd panic.
Yeah,
you'd panic.
You're so like sensitive to any sort of emotion, like it's crazy.
Yeah,
my mental
very, very suggestive.
I think I'm too vulnerable to dabble with any of that. I think.
Yeah, so like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird one because obviously since most of them are still illegal, they can't do much research on them. But like from what I do know, and like obviously from a logical point of view as well. Like the poison of something isn't the dose you take it in. You can have doses of like different drugs that are so small that they cause absolutely no effect. And you have doses that cause an effect but don't do harm. And then you have doses that cause an effect like and do harm. And that's just logical. Like that's the case with water. That's the case with if I started chewing on the skirting board over there in the room. There's a
wow.
But like there is actually safe ways to do this. And I think like even if anyone is ever thinking about doing it, just to like do a bit of research. Like it's much better than just having a hand thrown in front of you when you have a few drinks in you and just deciding to take something. Like there's so much safety precautions you can take for something as simple as like, let's say MDMA is just having water in hand, but also knowing that you can actually overhydrate as well, and just knowing that is a possibility, and knowing that there is like there's test kits out there for it to actually test if it's the proper substance. Most people don't know that, and they're like
Yeah.
€16. Truffles pose like barely any risk, but they're legal in Ireland and they're legal in Amsterdam. And LSD, obviously, that's supposedly physiologically doesn't cause any risk, but that's like, it is a bit of a grey area for people, obviously, that mightn't be in the right headspace for it, that might have like a family history with like schizophrenia or other mental conditions and things like that. Like, but it's definitely not like a black and white situation where like they're bad and not taking them is good. It's like, it depends. It completely depends on the drug. It depends who's taking it, depends where they're taking it, it depends how much they're taking. So yeah, just my opinion thrown out there on them.
Like, I agree with that. Like, yeah, I'm 14 months sober, but I'm 14 months sober because I went weird. I was getting addictive behaviors. But like Barry, he just tried something and he had laugh. And like anyone who's listening, like if you like taking some ecstasy once a month, we don't give a shit. Like, do it. Like just
responsible.
Yeah, just because I'm sober, it's not like you have to be sober to watch this podcast. Do you know what I mean?
Big disclaimer at the start.
Oh yeah, if you drink or drug, don't click.
Yeah.
I have no views. But did you take
the Sober
LSD
Bookles
as well?
podcast?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Did you take LSD before, Barry, as well?
Yeah, so that was actually, I think I could have been 19 or 20. That was a bad experience now, but that was my own fault. So what I did was, actually, I won't say how I ordered it because I don't want to promote it, but basically I got it online and I had it at a friend's house, but his dad was at the house at the time and I had it at like midnight and that wasn't so bad. I kind of knew his dad and he would have been sound about it, but he also had a husky. And that's kind of where the problem happened. His husky it's like the type of dog where you'd walk in, he'd jump up on you and he'd start humping you, and which is all it's all good and well. He's a lovely dog, but when you're like 3 hours into a trip, you're convinced, or you convince yourself that he's going to eat you, and that he's only playing with you beforehand when he jumps up on you. And I remember being outside at some point, only being able to see like half a foot in front of me because it was pitch black, and just being out there with the husky, and all I could see is pitch black, and then the husky's face going like this, and it's just awful. In reality, like,
it's scary.
Yeah, if someone's trying to torture me, it's like literally dog jumping up on you in the dark. It's not that scary, but in your head, you play it up
like a wolf or something.
Yeah, you convince yourself it's a wolf. Like,
yeah, it's like a couple of states in America just recently they've decriminalized like psychedelics and legalized weed, and Oregon have like decriminalized all drugs,
everything. Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of works out over there. Like,
what other things did you try, Barry? Because like I don't think I know any other things. That's all I actually know. Cocaine and marijuana. Like that's it. Marijuana, weed. Sorry, that's cringe.
So I would have had weed, ecstasy, MDMA, cocaine. That was actually much. I think it was like 20 before I had that. I had morning glory seeds, which is LSA. It's like a type of. It's in the same family as LSD. Went on a wild one with that one. Basically, ended up like filtering out these random seeds I bought online into a dirty coffee cup in my wardrobe at home. Had fairly mild effects, but, that was one of them.
Very, very Walter White-esque, like filtering out in the wardrobe, like. Really.
Yeah. And I think that was it. To be honest,
That's enough, though.
Obviously, I'm still mad for caffeine. I do like the Monster Energy, but that technically counts as well. But I think that's it. Yeah.
People don't talk about that. Like caffeine is a drug.
I've actually had speed and Ket as well, but it was once each for the two of those.
Ket's a bit scary. I'd be a bit scared of Ket.
That's relatively safe, isn't it?
No, I don't think so.
I actually couldn't tell you. I actually don't have a clue about that one. I've just heard mixed.
Well, hang on, Bill. How can you say that horse tranquilizer would be relatively safe?
I've heard rumors.
Did you know it's horse tranquilizer? How were you on that? Were you fine?
So funny story about that. I only ever had it once. I only ever had it once, and when I had it, I was on shrooms.
Okay.
So I had mixed that with, So it was actually just kind of, I couldn't, to be honest, I couldn't tell what the effects were because I didn't know if they were from shrooms or from the ket. But I was, So back in the day, I did have a phase where I did try a lot, and like from that, I just remember kind of feeling somewhat out of body. Like if you've ever played a video game where it's not first person and you can see the person from like their back,
Third
that's
person
kind of how I would. That's how I would kind of describe it, and feeling slightly warm. But I mean, at the same time, I could have imagined so many effects just simply from the fact that I was on truffles. But I'd never tried it outside that, and I've never researched it, so I wouldn't ever try it until I kind of looked into it a good bit.
Yeah, see, like lads, like take drugs if you want to take drugs, but like what Barry said, like just look into it and take it responsibly and make sure you're not getting it off a fella who looks terrifying and you know it's going to be dodgy or so cheap. Like, just, do you know what I mean? Be a bit street smart with it. And if you're not street smart, then don't bother.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Preach.
Will we go into our sponsor?
That's it. I don't think this is
Sorry, Barry. What were you saying there?
No, you're right. I was saying I don't think it's a popular opinion, but I think a lot of people are much better off like researching them and taking them safely, as opposed to just banning them and no one having them at all, because they're going to have them anyways.
Yes, that's the thing. If you ban something, people are going to take it anyway. Like, it's a regardless thing, because like there's escapism. That's a big thing. Like, I mean, escapism isn't always negative. Like, I escape every evening when I watch YouTube for an hour. You know what I mean? It's not something you have to avoid. And like, I honestly, well, like, obviously I'm sober from drink 14 months, whatever, but I think drink has much worse effects than a lot of those other stuff would. Like people die from drinking, but people don't die from smoking weed. So like, can you explain something? Why can I make a school bag out of weed, out of hemp, but I can't buy it? Like, what's going on? Do you know?
So we'll just have a break there for our sponsor. So MT Fitness Cork is a personal training business in the heart of Blackpool, Cork. It specialises in personal training, nutrition, well-being and mindset. They've helped hundreds of people over the last 2 years, and it's a place for absolutely everyone. You can contact them on Facebook or Instagram at MT Fitness Cork, or give Mark a call on 085 738 4657.
And like we always say now, Mark, he's good things coming, doesn't he?
Yeah, new gym opening soon in January. He's still doing the online coaching and stuff like that. And have a look at his testimonials.
Yeah, we leave it there. Just literally look him up, go into his testimonials, and that's it. And if you're in Cork, go to MT Fitness. If you're in Mayo, though, there's your man.
In
Not
Galway.
Galway. I'm sorry. No, if you're just, he's everywhere. He's online, though. Yeah. You don't got to be in Galway or Mayo.
Where can people find you on Instagram, Barry?
Just at Barysbods. No spaces, no nothing.
No spaces,
actually,
no nothing.
before that was a nice way of doing it.
Yeah.
Before we go into, because it is going to get a bit darker now, we're going to go a bit more down the mental health path. I want to know, because your name is Barry, do you drink Barry's tea?
No, I think it's Mac. I'm a Lions man.
Oh my God, that's crazy. I really though.
Yeah, I think Lions is far better. I've just drank Lions growing up. I think that was it.
Oh, Lions is grand. Lions is the green one with the triangle on the front or something, isn't it?
Yeah, you can get red boxes as well.
The Illuminati. Your dad definitely has a video of that on YouTube. So we just talked about your drug use and it's just trial and error, but I know that your ex found out about that, and she kind of said you were a liar, and you failed your pre's and stuff, and I know you told me as well that you stopped going to school. How isolating was that time for you?
Yeah, so like at that point, that was kind of fairly close to rock bottom. So that's kind of when I broke up with my ex around that time. Obviously, that felt a bit shit. It was around my birthday as well. I don't remember was my 18th birthday, I think, and I just don't remember anything about it. And I'm trying to think. Yeah, so basically what happened is the first time I had a yolk, as I was saying previously, I was going out with her when I had it, okay? And she didn't know that I'd had it, but she knew I went on a night out and enjoyed myself. So basically when she asked me about the night out, I told her the truth, but I didn't tell her that I had the yolk. I told her I enjoyed myself, I enjoyed the night out, but I kept from her that I had this, obviously, and I probably should have told her. Now, like the breakup wasn't, like, I know looking back now that like it wasn't my fault. Like it was definitely a good idea to break up. It wasn't working. But at the time, it was like my brain was like, Barry, you fucked this. So that's how I was looking at it. And when I found out then, or when I knew that kind of she knew about this whole thing with the yoke, this obviously affected her as well, and she flipped. And now there's me already blaming myself for the breakup, and then after finding out kind of that she flipped because of this, and she kind of stopped talking to me in school and everything, because we kind of kept talking, and she kind of gave me dirty looks and everything like that in the classroom and things like that, which is kind of fair. I had to sit beside her. Yeah,
that's very isolating. Look, we can laugh about that now, but that is very isolating. Like, your one just snapped at you, you're finished, your life's over in your head, and she's sitting beside you, giving you dirty eye rolls. And we need to end the stigma as well, that like you can't have a good life and suffer mental health issues. Like, it can be all self-inflicted in your mind when you don't have information about it. That must have been so isolating, Barry. And I know then you stopped. So she called you a liar, so to say, yeah? Even though you weren't, she just didn't say a bit of information. But then you actually stopped going to school, and you were like lying to mom and dad about that. How did it feel then actually making up a lie? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I'd already kind of convinced myself I fucked the relationship. Then I convinced myself that it was my fault because of everything that she was feeling, which is illogical, but I convinced myself that it was all my fault. And I felt bad for making like this person that I liked so much upset. And then also because I'd like to kind of think that I was someone that was a somewhat good person. And now the fact that she kind of called me a liar, someone that I kind of know and trusted, I'm like, right, that's who I am now. I'm a liar, and I just could not deal with that at all. So I kind of went from there to just like thoughts were going like 90 the whole time. Like I'd be sitting down in class, thoughts 90. I remember like going out to the bathroom and just like even at lunchtime and just sitting in a cubicle for like 20 minutes, just fist here, like just thinking and like doing nothing, just avoiding all social interaction, because I couldn't properly talk to people like at all. I just couldn't. My thoughts would go off. So then at that point I was like, fuck, why am I in school? I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know who I was. So I was like, why am I in here? And it's only, I remember kind of running off as well, hiding in some shed beside the school. I'm like, why don't I just wait at home? So I started waiting at home then at that point. Started missing the bus on purpose and creeping back into the house after my parents left. And I would just wait at home and like watch movies all day to like quote unquote escape. So I remember like going through like Marvel movies and everything like that, just to kind of get out of my own head. And it kind of worked, but it kind of didn't. Then my parents found out, and they didn't really understand at first. Obviously I didn't tell them anything, so I don't blame them. Like I didn't even show it to them. They wouldn't have known. I just acted as normal. And dad took a while to find out as well, because it's not really something he experienced with anyone in his life. And obviously back in the day as well, even if people did have it, it's something they hid. And that's kind of how he was brought up.
Yeah.
But eventually he did understand it. But at that point, yeah, it just home alone like all day. And I much preferred that to being at school, but I was very much just sitting and trying to distract myself by watching movies all day, like from my thoughts.
And like a lot of people listening now, if they want to like do a little eye roll or whatever, there's a difference. You used to go on the hop sometimes.
I used to go on the hop in my half price in primary school. I hated school so much. Like,
but you would have been happy in it, wouldn't you? Like, you didn't really care that you were taking the hop, or you know what I mean? Like, I was in that thing of I'm sad in school. Like, there's a difference between not liking school and being sad and miserable and hateful there, you know what I mean? And like taking the hop the odd day is grand. but it's much different when everyone else is in school, you're supposed to be in school, but you actually hate it and you hate people there. And I'm trying to think of the word I'm trying to say, I get stuck with words. It's as if you feel like, not like, I'm trying to think of the word, like you're not supposed to be there. You feel so
alien,
so out of place. You just feel so wrong there. And
yeah,
could you bring us through your feelings, if you can look back in those days when it was like your routine was just pretending going to school, fake my life, come back in and just watch movies and tell a lie whenever they come back? How was that?
yeah. So I know that you mentioned school again there, like feelings at that point just before I like quit completely. I definitely remember feeling far more alone when I was surrounded by people versus by myself, which is actually interesting. But basically what was happening was anytime I was surrounded by people and they were laughing and smiling, I just assumed anyways that I felt the complete opposite. And I was like, okay, shit, I'm going to have to start like laughing and smiling now. I have to put on this front. I have to pretend that I'm like as happy as everyone else. And I was like, that was just so exhausting at school all the time. And every time I did that, it was like a constant, like active reminder that something was up. And so I was like, okay, need to avoid this situation because it was completely exhausting being at school. And then at home, it was basically the same thing, just thinking that I was either a terrible person, there was something wrong with me, and I didn't deserve to kind of live on and have a happy life or something like that because I upset this one person. Like it sounds ridiculous, but you
No, it's
just
not.
keep going deeper and deeper.
As I'm studying I'm studying a diploma in positive psychology and MBCT and mindfulness, and literally, right, if like people think if you're suffering your mental health to the degree Barry was and to the degree I was like in previous years, you don't know the thoughts are not facts. You think your thoughts are real. And whenever you think those thoughts are real, like if you get a thought saying, I'm a shit person, and if you believe that, you are going to be having a really shit existence. And if your brain's telling you, I can't go to school, I can't tell people, you're going to believe it. And this is why we come on and talk about this, and we have people like Barry and everybody on, because if your thoughts are like that, don't think they're factual, because they're not. No matter what, I don't care if you've done something horrible. I've done really, really bad things whenever I was drinking and stuff, but that doesn't define you as a person. It doesn't, like, nobody's a bad person, just people do bad things, you know, that way. And I just think and like for Barry especially, like he's here and he's saying, I had great childhood, I was brought up in a nice little village, all this, and it just shows what your mind can do to you. You know what I mean? It's so crippling. It's actually scary. Like,
No, it's definitely strange times.
And what happened when they kind of found out you were on the hop and they kind of talked to you and interrogated you or whatever?
Yeah, so I know it was around this time as well where the memories just like, it's definitely everything's kind of like a blur, because I don't know, it's weird. It's like, I don't know if anyone that has ever had experience with this, it's kind of when you're kind of at your worst, or maybe just slightly before your worst, it's hard to remember any events. And maybe it's partly because so much of your days look the same. A bit like COVID, when you're stuck at home all day, you're doing the same things. You don't know when it's fucking Saturday or Sunday. You get the days wrong. So I'm presuming that's probably why I don't remember things. Everything's just blended together. And what was the question again? Sorry.
And as well, you just said there as well, you could be suppressing. A lot of people do that with hardships and stuff. You just suppress those thoughts. Like, I still have a lot of things that are suppressed. And like someone will ask about when something happened, and you go, I actually can't remember that horrible day in my life. And you just kind of try and make it up because you want to tell people. But what I asked you was, like, when your parents actually found out that you were bunking school, what happened from there? When they were like, what's wrong with you? Like,
yeah, so that's kind of what happened actually. At the beginning, they were like, they're obviously very thick because they didn't know anything that was going on, and they thought I was just being some sort of cheeky brat that just wanted to like stay at home and not care about anything. But and I still didn't tell them. It was definitely a situation of they found out from poking and prodding at me. And I remember one morning when they kind of really knew what was up, because before then it just looked like I was just being a little shit, a little cunt, because I wasn't really showing any like negative emotions, or well, I was getting angry at them, but I didn't like tell them a thing. It just looked like I was skipping school for the crack, and I would have been cursing back at them and all that shite.
Look like hormonal
But one morning,
teenager.
that's it. And one morning I was basically, they were watching me, like sending me out for the bus. And I turned around to Mom and I was like, I can't do it. Like, I can't do it. I actually can't go out. And she's like, what are you talking about? You go out. I was like, I can't. I was like, are you okay? Like, and then Dad came on and was like, you're going out the bus now. You're going out. And then I just ran around the corner of the house and like waited there. And they're like seeing me going around the wrong side of the house. And I just sat like against like a tiny like wall of the house, like the side wall. And I just completely broke down crying, because it was like, I didn't want to let them know. Don't know why that was.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to let them know. And then I was like, I literally could not actually keep it in then at that point, because I was like, they're going to find out. So I like broke down. Dad came around, found me, and he knew like straight away then that something was up. And then he went inside like, right, stay at home today. And they chat about it basically. And then they started kind of discussing getting help.
Wow.
And like, did the teachers or anything like suspect anything that was wrong with her? Did the principal get in contact with your parents saying you were missing from school for like periods or anything like that?
I don't actually think they did, as far as I can remember. I know I was kind of skipping school in TY, but that was for a different reason. And that was separate. But I think what might have happened is, I'm not sure if this was in TY or later, but I was basically texting my brother and telling my brother to let me know when the bus would kind of come back, so I could time running out to the bus to make it look like I was coming back in with my brother.
Nice.
And I accidentally texted my mom instead of my brother one day, and she looked at the text like pure confused. So that plot was spoiled. So I think that's how she found out. Sorry, I'm just plugging in the charger.
You're funny. I think it's crazy how like, and again, Barry's story for me just shows what your mind and brain, not your brain, your mind can tell you.
Yeah.
Like, he believed he couldn't tell his parents. He was too, they wouldn't understand or whatever, and how his body like just released that and wouldn't stop. That was like his body's way of needing to get it out without him even knowing. You know what I mean? Like, he was trying to hold it back, but it was just flooding and flooding.
Yeah. I suppose, well, like you said, you know, when you were in school, you were getting like your feelings were going down, like you're feeling less sad, and you couldn't understand it yourself. So
less happy.
it would probably, less happy. So it'd probably be impossible for you to even explain what you were feeling to your parents. So you thought like, no, they definitely can't, because I don't even understand it, you know.
Yeah, that was definitely part of it. It was like, because they asked what was wrong, and I just remember like bawling and saying, I don't know. It's like, I didn't know. I didn't have a clue.
Yeah.
So sad.
And that's it. Like, it is hard to explain if you've never experienced it. Like, there's no kind of, you know, there's no book and you can see a feeling. Do you know what I mean? Or something like that, you know? So it's impossible to express a feeling if you've never experienced it, you know?
Looking back,
and I mean, I knew what it was, but
yeah. If you were looking back, this is kind of what I'm saying. It's a bit stupid, but not really. Like, see if someone's listening to this podcast now and they're in the situation you were before, and if they can hear us saying, there's no shame, go to whoever and say, I'm so upset, I don't know. Do you think if you've done that earlier, if you heard someone else say, it's fine not to understand, just tell someone, do you think you would have?
I don't know at the time, because it would have to be someone that I like maybe a close friend, possibly. But like, I know at the time there was still all those like people would post up on social media, like call for help. You have these helplines, you have all this information on like depression and all that. But that's all stuff I completely ignored, to be fully honest with you. When I was down there, I didn't want anything to do with that, and I just didn't want to look at it. Part of it could have been that the fact that I just told myself that I couldn't be depressed based on my childhood. But like I ignored a lot of that. But I think if a close friend came up to me and like started kind of prodding at me like that, then I think I probably would have gotten help sooner.
Yeah. So it's important then. Look, if
Yeah.
you do see one of your friends
Being a
kind of,
bit weird.
yeah, not acting themselves, and ask them.
Oh,
Are they
look
alright?
on it.
Like,
And
yeah.
annoy them.
Yeah.
Don't, like, do you know what I mean? Don't just go, you alright? And then they go, yeah. And you're still like, that was even weird.
Yeah.
Like, say to them, like, what is going on? I know I'm saying that in a funny way, but look, it's just how I carry on. But like, be like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And keep annoy them, because like, you don't just annoy them until you're sure. Do you know that sort of way? So lads, this is recorded at a different date. We decided we were gonna leave you on a cliffhanger and make Barry's episode a 2-part episode. Because of its importance, I don't want people seeing it's an hour and a half long and going, I'd rather you be left on a cliffhanger and be looking forward for next week. So
yeah, it's going to get so much more interesting in the second episode.
Yeah, it goes a lot more in depth. Like the stage we're at now is, he just kind of talked about the school and that he got found out for bunking school. But now in the next episode we go into him getting help, and that the help didn't work for him, and that he actually got sicker. The suicidal thoughts really came into play, and self-harm, and how physical fitness turned it all around in the space of 6 to 9 months from that stage.
We won't give any more away from that, just watch or listen again for part 2.
And thanks so much for listening, everybody. Our Patreon link is down below. We appreciate every one of you so much, and I'd say you've noticed, like, every time we record we're getting better and better. I seen some podcasts, they were talking about, they said like they've been doing it for 5 years. And I was like, fuck, when we're doing this for 5 years, I'm gonna be global. Do you know what I mean?
We're gonna be pro.
We're only starting, like, and it's because of you, and we're so grateful for you. Thanks for listening, and Joseph's gonna be back for Monday's episode, and then you're gonna have to wait a full week for Barry's next Thursday. So we'll chat to you soon, guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.